case we are live, I want to say welcome to the Bodega Bay Grange Hall to our 1031 exchange seminar. You're going to learn all the aspects of 1031 exchange for investment property, whether or not your investment property may be eligible for a 1031 exchange. There I am. I can see me now. We'll be here for a couple of hours. We'll be giving you lots and lots of information. Hopefully you've been watching the slideshow prior to this, that you could see how beautiful it is out here in Bodega Bay. I want to thank everyone for coming. Any technical issues, we have a tech person here to help out, so I'll be turning it over to him if that happens. We'll have a presentation starting off with Austin Lawrence, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself. He's a mountain biker, I do know that much for sure, and I'll let him elaborate on that. We also have Michelle Husse. She's a current managing partner of Eckhoff Wealth Management, and it's her responsibility to ensure that they continuously strive to bring innovative solutions to their clients. Since joining in 1984, she's been providing services in accounting and auditing in a variety of industries, and I'll let her tell a little bit more about herself and the qualifications that she has. She's been doing this work for quite a while, and outside of that, she enjoys entertaining friends and family, cooking and gardening, and volunteering at various not-for-profit organizations. We also have Bruce Frankel. He's a managing partner at Eckhoff Wealth Management, and his primary responsibilities are include working with clients and coordinating with partners at EAC to set the strategic direction of the firm. His extensive work experience helping clients protect and grow their wealth inspired his book, The 7 Biggest Financial Mistakes Made by Successful Entrepreneurs and What to Do About Them. He shares his creative approach to strategic planning, providing readers the information to build a legacy for their families and causes they care about deeply. We also have Michael Cazada, who is a 1031 exchange facilitator. He is based in San Francisco, and he is the exchange contact for all of Northern California. He comes from 3 generations of real estate professionals and has more than 19 years experience in title insurance. He's worked in various roles in title and escrow, including searching, title officer, escrow assistant, and sales executive, executing all aspects of the closing process. I'm Debby Fries. I'm a real estate agent, and I'm happy to show you any properties out here in Bodega Bay. Just give me a call, and we'll get started with Mr. Lawrence, who's going to tell you about mortgages.
All right, thank you, Debbie. Hello, thank you for being here. I'm going to adjust the camera just a little bit. I am going to lead you through a PowerPoint presentation with regards to what I am doing. Let me just make sure that that is in there, and then I will get started. All right, so great. All right. All right, thank you for your patience. I really appreciate it. Okay, so my name is Austin Lawrence. I am going to be kind of giving you a little bit of the mortgage side of the 1031 exchange, which really doesn't pertain to the 1031 exchange, just means that I can help out with that. And I wanted to start off by just kind of sharing with you the idea that a lot of people think 1031 exchange and cash out loan, and then that's about all they know. So there's a lot of information you're going to get today. I would hope that you would take some notes, as well as reach out, put any comments in there, and we will be responding to those, as well as just making these connections with the different people that are going to be speaking today. So without that, I will get started. So I'm going to try to cover some specific topics, introducing myself, trends in the actual mortgage market, as well as with regards to the 1031, who I see benefiting from that, kind of what the focus is, Mainly, I'm going to get to some problems I see quite often when it comes to real estate investors and just in general, kind of what they're trying to do and how this could maybe help that, at least give some clarity to that kind of situation. And then finally, I'm going to propose a solution that I think will benefit everybody, all parties involved with regards to real estate investment in general, not specifically the 1031 exchange, although that's kind of the framework. So I wanted to kind of share with you a little bit of information here. If you look at the projected growth of equity in actual real estate, and this is particularly San Francisco, we see that they're projecting from 2022 to 2026 an increased growth, which means that property values are probably going to continue to grow at an enormous level. And we're seeing projected growth to be about $93,000 in that particular framework. And we've seen over the last year the rise at about 35%. So this is definitely a good time to get into the real estate market and start making some investments. So who am I? How can Austin help your business? My name is Austin Lawrence, NMLS number 225079, and I am known as the Mountain Biking MLO, which just means I like to mountain bike and I also do loans. So I'm your friendly neighborhood mortgage broker. It's just a fancy way of saying that I am a loan officer. The difference is I am not a bank, so that allows me the opportunity to shop several different lenders, really to get the best rates and the perfect program for you. So I'm like what you would call maybe the Costco of real estate mortgages. I'm wholesale, so I do all the networking, all the heavy lifting, and then you benefit from my relationships and my craft knowledge. All right, and if you see, I got a little picture there from the whole enchilada, one of those bucket list mountain bike rides, and I like to share that. Okay, so what is the 1031 exchange? A 1031 exchange is the tax code for investors or business owners who own investment properties. Basically, our friends in the Eckhoff company, Bruce and Michelle, will get into more details during their presentation, and I'm sure Michael will also bring some clarity to this tax code for you. So stay on board. I'm going to be just introducing you to the concept. They're going to go into the details. All right, so I actually do have an MLO code of conduct with regards to being a loan officer, and I take these 4 responsibilities really seriously when I'm dealing with the 1031 exchange or real estate investors in general. Number 1 is communication and coordination. I'm not going to get into all the details because I want to get to the main part of what we're doing. Number 2, correct product and services. That is one of the keys, is we've got to find you the correct product and service that really makes this happen for you in a very effective way. And then finally, financing implementation and title coordination. This has to do with actually me just doing my job and then coordinating all the kind of nuts and bolts to bring it together, having a synergy, having your financial advisor, having any attorneys, having the real estate, the title companies, the escrow, all bringing this together and making sure we're all on the same page. And then finally, obviously most important for you is my follow-up and my maximization of what you're actually trying to do and making sure that you're getting the actual growth that you're projecting with regards to this type of an exchange. Okay, why should I use a 1031 exchange? There's a lot of reasons, but one thing I just wanted to kind of point out to you that I've started to notice is there are a lot of write-ups and trends in this and studies. And one of the studies that I really picked up on was from Professor David Ling and Milena Petrova. And they were talking about like-kind exchanges, giving business and entrepreneurs more incentive and ability to make real estate and capital investments. Taxpayers engaged in the like-kind investment invested 33% more capital, according to their study, in replacement properties than non-exchanging buyers. So what you're seeing is they're actually growing a lot faster than just the average, person who's kind of just dabbling in real estate investment. So these resources are a quintessential gem for you to really just, try to grab onto and use to parlay that equity into something great. The Ling and Petrova study also found that without the Section 1031 tax incentive, many transactions, and in fact, this is kind of the big part, the real estate market and many transactions would actually have an effect on the real estate market in a negative way. In fact, it would bring down the market if this type of an actual code was not part of it. So I want to talk about something that's not 1031 related, but what I see often happen. This is the biggest problem in real estate for me when I see people that are not using the resources that are available to them. And I want you to get the most out of whatever process or transaction you're going to. So without a qualified team, many investors who want to increase their cash flow or their holdings in that case, with regards to investment properties, they do two things. They pull cash out of their current investment property without thinking about the repercussions of that and just reinvesting kind of willy-nilly, and then also selling properties without utilizing a 1031 exchange. So both of these are viable, but they may have tax implications. So they don't maximize the equity, and they really don't help you to grow your portfolio in the way that I think you could. So, and hopefully you'll see that throughout this presentation. All right, understanding the market, I just want to talk about two big trends that are happening in the market today and why this is a great time for you to step into this market. What's happening in the real estate market today? Two main things. One, interest rates are absolutely at their historic lows. So you're probably going to see interest rates ticking up. We saw refinances. That's why I have the picture of the refinances. This is the one thing that everybody was trying to do because of the low rates. They knew it. Now you're seeing this kind of shift to building ADUs because the rates are low and there's a lack of supply. So interest rates are at historic lows. Home values are on the rise. And I think everybody could agree there is no more West. We're no longer going to be getting that land that nobody's claimed. California is already established. So now's the time to really try to find that property or that particular lot or piece of land that you can invest in. And this is a great time to actually parlay that to watching it grow. All right, so let's look at the trend just over history. So historically, we've seen mainly from, this is 1963 to probably right in that 2004 or 5 range. We've seen basically rates at above 5%. So we're in this kind of low point, but historically, we know this is probably not going to last. So really, you have some tough decisions, and the question is, what do you think is going to happen in 2022? All right. The other thing that we're seeing trend-wise in the mortgage market is we're seeing that two factors are really influencing what's going on in the market today. Obviously, the interest rates being low and below 5%, but also home values are increasing, and they're increasing at a level we have never seen really in the history of the market. In fact, over the last year, we've seen equity increase in most properties at about 35%. And that's kind of what I was showing you in those beginning slides, is that we're starting to see this trend slow down a little bit. So this is the time to get into the market. What or who does the 1031 help? This is kind of what our focus is. We're really talking about business owners and real estate investors. And you can take a look at my slides. I'd be more than happy to share these with you. I have kind of 4 ways real estate investors make money, but I don't really want to get into that. I want to kind of get into now the 1031 and how that can help you. All right, so how can I use the equity? One option is to sell and reinvest. Another option is to pull cash out, like a Dscr loan, which is a new type of loan that allows you to actually pull out money based on the income of the property. And you can pull out that cash to reinvest, and many properties even qualify for this type of loan, even if they don't have the documentation. So the solution is you really want to try to grab onto our team and start talking about your current situation and how you can use the particular process, the 1031 exchange, to benefit you. And that doesn't exclude cash out loans. You really want to talk to an attorney, get some tax advice as well as a CPA on this information. And then what I think you'll find is that you're actually getting the information you need to make a better decision. All right, investor loan products right now, what we're seeing with investor loan products is there's mainly 2 types of products people are used, which are the bank statement loans and Dscr loans. There are other types of loans, and obviously cash is king in most markets as well too. But the solution is to actually use these type of loans to build the equity in your property. So what you're looking at is, based on the growth, how can you take that property and then parlay it into continued growth or more better expanded investments. All right. This is the DSCR loan, and I just wanted to bring this up briefly just to let you know, we're probably talking in the range of, 75, 80% of the LTV is what you're going to be able to afford. And we are talking higher credit standards. Obviously, you probably want to be at 720, 730, 740 in which to qualify for a lot of these programs, but that doesn't necessarily exclude you. So this is the loan that I would recommend. If you have questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to share with you what the DSCR loan is and why that is a great loan for investors. Otherwise, just want to end with thanking you very much for bearing with me on my introduction to the actual process of the 1031 exchange, what contribution I've made to it. And then what I really want to kind of encourage you to do is reach out to us and let us help you make your investment grow. All right, and then this is who I am. I'm going to take a minute to transition to Bruce and Michelle's presentation. Again, my name is Austin Lawrence, your mountain biking MLO. Thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you on the trail. Okay, we're going to take a
Okay. As I was saying when you couldn't hear me, now we have reached the point where you're in the 45-day replacement period. We've sold the property and now we have to figure out the other side. A lot of times we're doing this way ahead of the closing because there are things that we can do to find that property and properties ahead of time. Check my water, please. So one of the biggest trends that is going on in the marketplace right now, thank you, is something called Delaware statutory trusts. A Delaware statutory trust, we're having computer troubles here. A Delaware statutory trust is an investment trust for passive accredited investors. So one actually needs to qualify to be able to invest in a Delaware statutory trust. Suffice it to say that the vast majority of people who are selling California property, because of the size of the properties, the worth, the value of the properties, are most likely going to qualify as an accredited investor. What you're investing in now is commercial grade real estate that is managed by experienced professional trustees, or what they're called sponsors. So you can look up online with a DST, as I'll start to use that acronym, a Delaware statutory trust is. But let's get into the details here. A lot of people think or get worried that this is a gray area as it pertains to the IRS. And it's not a gray area at all. The IRS has fully examined this all the way back in 2004 and has approved Delaware statutory trusts to be classified as such trust for tax purposes. They also determined that a taxpayer may exchange real property for an interest in a Delaware statutory trust without having to recognize a gain or loss under Section 1031. So there we have it. This goes all the way back to 2004, when a Delaware statutory trust was first approved for use as a 1031 replacement. I'm going to get into a series of FAQs. So the types of properties that are in Delaware statutory trust run the gamut. I keep trying to use that. It's not working. So you can find all kinds of these properties. The trends nowadays, you can see, are these single tenant triple net leases, storage facilities, Class A multifamily. You see student housing, senior living. A lot of these things have been just big trends that are going on in Delaware statutory trusts. You can see there's Amazon distribution facilities. You can see here medical facilities, hospitals of all sorts, all across the country, actually. Here's a Home Depot, a FedEx sorting facility, multifamily, as mentioned. Most of the multifamily is Class A multifamily. We will look at some Class B for people, but most of our clients are very risk averse, so we pretty much stick with Class A multifamily. But this just goes to show the gamut of all types of properties that are available for people in a DST environment. Now, the next slide I'm going to bring up is what is going on with some of the trends in the DST world. And that is, we have historically created diversified portfolios for our clients by putting them into 2 or 3 DSTs. It just depends on the size of the exchange. As a certified financial planner, you can imagine we're always preaching about diversification. So if we are able to get people into a number of properties and property types and in different geographic locations, now we're creating quite a diversified portfolio to reduce risk. Excuse me. Well, some of these companies, sponsors that create the DSTs found out about this and started to get clever and say, well, why don't we create a DST that is fully diversified in and of itself? So I'm going to show you an example. This is an example of a DST. It's no longer available. This company is one of the first ones, if not the first one, to come up with this concept. A couple more are starting to do it. But it is multiple properties, as I was saying, in multiple locations. If you can see that, I don't know if that's too small, but that's 24 properties in this one DST of all different kinds of properties in there, several different industries across, I think it's 14 states. So the ultimate in diversification, if you will. I'm also asked a lot, who are these companies that are doing these things? And a lot of them are the big real estate investment trust companies, the REITs, the kind of old-fashioned REIT companies that got into the DST business. Some of them these are very, very old, very large real estate investment companies that have been around a long time, have a long track record. But there are a lot of new people getting into this business now. As I said about, people being exchange intermediaries, the DST market, again, I cannot emphasize enough the size of what is going on in this market. That means that there have been some people kind of cropping up who are newbies. So one needs to be careful. You have to be selective in who you are using as the sponsor for your replacement, and because they're not all the same. And some of them are doing some things to be very aggressive to attract your business with some very high returns. And those concern me a little bit. So I'm asked with the location of these properties. The vast majority are in the Midwest, Southeast of the country. That trend is very, very solid. For obvious reasons. This is where land is still relatively economical, where they can build at a cheap enough cost in order to get the returns out of the properties. And this is also where we're seeing just a high influx of population growth as well. These other questions that I get are, do I get an interest deduction? So if you have debt today, and I'm taking you back several slides ago where I mentioned one of the rules is that if you have debt today, you have to exchange with an equal or greater amount of debt going forward. So yes, you would continue to benefit from an interest deduction with the debt that's in the DST. Don't forget, when you are in the DST, you're an owner of those properties. So any of the benefit, appreciation, depreciation, if that happens, unfortunately, but interest deduction, writing off of fees and all that, you do benefit from. You continue to benefit from. Debt treatment. One of the interesting things about a DST is that the debt becomes what's called non-recourse debt. So what does all that mean, right? The debt is now in the trust, the Delaware statutory trust. Heaven forbid that that project defaults, right? It could happen. Can the lien holder come back to you as one of the investors in that DST to recoup the loan? No. Their recourse is only with the trust. So the debt really comes off of your balance sheet, goes onto the balance sheet of the trust, and then there is no ramification back. So this could help with other things that you're doing with Austin as well, and qualifying for other things. I encourage you to check that out with Austin. Again, depreciation expense, yes. Appreciation or loss, as I mentioned, yes. Property management. One goes into a DST because they are wanting passive ownership now. As our Nia in our marketing department likes to say, the idea going into the DSTs is to get rid of the terrible Ts. But some people like managing property, right? Some of you enjoy doing that. Driving by the property, this person I told you about that I wrote the book about in San Francisco, he goes to 3 properties a day. He tinkers around, he cleans up, he's chatting with his tenants. It's his job, he loves it. So a DST might not be right for a person like that, right? You may miss the managing and tinkering. Now we're working with someone right now where the spouse is happy as can be because the husband won't be going to the property and tinkering any longer. So property management is now being handled by the trust, and those firms that I showed you that are the sponsors are professional property managers, or they are hiring in property management companies that they are supervising. So there is no property management for you, pure passive ownership. Decision-making is also handled by the trustees. This is another reason why you are hiring them, but it's also giving up control. And I know that that is very difficult for a lot of us to give up control like that. That's the other reason why it's very important who we're using as the sponsors on the replacement side. We need to be comfortable with who they are and their background and their track record. But decision-making now goes to the trust, the trustee of the trust, that sponsor. And we want that. And when it comes to the decisions about selling these properties or some sort of transition of the properties, it's important that they are making this decision based on the right timing. We don't like to sell property when there's too much time left on leases. We want to take advantage of those leases. But we also don't want to sell the property too close to lease expiration because that's risk for a buyer. So it's important we leave these decisions to the sponsors. As well, we don't know what's going on with the economy and the markets at that time. So tax reporting is handled the same way. Usually a K-1 will come, and that's just reported on your return. Pretty straightforward. Fees are deductible, very similar to you buying and owning a single family residence, SFR. Continued 1031 qualification. Let me spend a minute here. Yes, and the phrase in the industry is, right, exchange, 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 and then get promoted, as I like to say, to heaven, where then your heirs will get a step up in basis, right, at that point, and then they can decide what they want to do as the investment comes to full cycle. Full cycle with these projects is usually about 5 to 7 years. I was talking in the last slide about decision making, and I'm asked this a lot. So it's usually about a 5 to 7 year cycle on these projects when they want to transition them based on, again, the right timing of all of this. And yes, it is continued 1031 qualified. So you can just continue to exchange. Now, do you have to stay in a DST once you're in a DST? No. No. At that point, we would work with you, look at your situation, help you see what makes sense, go out and look for what's currently available in the DST market, and help you decide what makes sense for you at that time. But I'm asked if it's continued qualification, and it is. Closing risk. There's virtually, I can't say 100%, but virtually no closing risk. Because by this time, we have already spoken with the sponsors. We've either reserved your equity or we've already filled out the paperwork for the equity. But once that happens, there's no risk of closing, of some default on loans. Those loans have already happened if there is debt. There's aren't contingencies and things like that. So there's virtually no closing risk. Are there rent increases? Yes. The vast majority of the leases embed annual rent increases, just like normal. And then there are risks. As it says on the bottom, there's always risk in any investment. And the biggest risk here are, first of all, I have to say it's not on here, but sponsor risk. We want to pick, I'm finding that there's some people who didn't become clients who are going out and working with some very new DST sponsors. That concerns me. But there's vacancy risk, loan default risk, liquidity risk. What I like to tell folks is that you're not immunizing yourself against risk when you enter a DST. It's the same risk that you have in owning real estate yourself, pretty much, except that's adding that sponsor risk on top of it. So same risks, pretty much. All right, that's the rules, the vast majority of the rules. Let's get back and talk about our example real quick, right? These guys, I meant to show you this before, right? They had 3 children. They have problems with the brother. So the biggest issue is with the brother. And we need to get back and look at, what we're doing with them to pay off their debt. They have, some debt on the residence, their personal residence, but credit cards, and they're paying life insurance premiums and whatnot. So this was what we did in their financial plan. So this is just one report out of their financial plan, and it is showing what their cash flow was when we met them. And as we entered in their expenses and their living expenses, and we added inflation at just what inflation was until this year, so an annual rate of about 2.5%, and then we run the cash flows all the way out till age 90, and we see what happens. So based on their current situation, it didn't look very good. In doing an exchange into the DST, you can see that the annual income, instead of $18,000 a year, went to $66,000 a year. So it's a very dramatic example, right? Not every example is this dramatic, of course, but they were getting 1.5% yield on the property before, and after the exchange, they're getting 5.5%. Okay, they were able to pull some money out and pay off their home equity line of credit in the process. This next one is just showing with their investable assets, and that took it up even more. So the results of it all were that they were able to pay off a lot of the debt that they had. They removed the brother from the situation. They're not managing property anymore, and they're still deducting fees. So for them, it worked very, very well. A DST is not necessarily for everybody, but I do have to say the trend for people, especially baby boomers and above right now, who are really tired of managing property, is in the DST world. Just a couple of quick things. I wanted to just talk to you about what our process is. We are fiduciaries, right? So we are not affiliated with a broker dealer. We are a registered investment advisory firm. and I'm a certified financial planner. It is our obligation to work in your best interest. And our process is really to just help you first analyze your situation, just to help you understand what it is. Fill out that form, and then we do our analysis of the property for you to understand and benchmark. And then if you're interested in moving forward, then we can run your cash flows as we did for that client, and then start working with you, finding property in the DST world, doing our due diligence, and then helping you to consider a package. And then we do all the work. We do all the paperwork. We coordinate with the exchange intermediary. We want to meet with you after the first quarter of ownership, and then on an annual basis thereafter. And that is pretty much what I had to present. We had to present today. I know it's a lot that we just threw at you between the 5 of us. So how are we handling questions today?
I can handle them through the chat.
Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat. And we will
I have a question.
do our best. Yes, ma'am. Debbie.
When we were talking about this in our brokerage, one of the people was saying that his home is home to his wife's business.
Yes.
And because of that, this property, most people might think, well, this is a private residence, it wouldn't really qualify. But since his wife has a business within the property.
1 second, let's mute that. Thank you. Since his wife has a business on the property, yes.
Right.
And I'm going to repeat so everyone can hear, but go ahead.
Would it possibly be eligible as a 1031 exchange?
Great. So the question is, if the property has a business on it, right? And part of that property, or even we have a situation where there's a rental on the property, right? And then they're going to sell the property. Michelle, feel free to chime in at any time. But can one, I'd say, bifurcate that sale and have partial 1031 treatment and partial just normal selling treatment, tax treatment?
Absolutely. So some of you might be aware that if for your personal residence, if you're a married couple and sell your home, and if you've been there 2 out of the last 5 years, you have the opportunity to exclude $500,000 if you meet all the requirements. But for most, if it's living there two out of the last 5 years and you both live there, you can exclude $500,000 of gain from the sale. But as Bruce was mentioning, and Debbie's question is, let's say there's an office in the home, or you're in a property where there's part of it is rented out on a regular basis. That part can actually be bifurcated and is eligible for a 1031. So you have to allocate the equity in that property between the personal residence and the investment property in order to do that.
And is that done by square footage? How?
An appraisal, and many times it'll be square footage.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to get a professional involved with that, so it's legit and it can be supported in case you come under audit. But it's a very efficient, effective way to get the benefit of both the $500,000 exemption and do a 1031.
Great.
Mhm.
I got asked a question. I just wanted, maybe if you could address it, Bruce. Can you pull cash out from a property and invest it into what would be essentially a 1031? Or can that parlay into a 1031 exchange of an investment property?
So you mean pull equity out and
A property, like an investment property.
and exchange that equity?
And just invest that cash.
Yeah.
Into another.
Well, you can invest the cash, but it's not going to be treated as a 1031, right? It's just pulling money out and investing. So there's not really 1031 to 1031 there because nothing was sold. Right?
Right.
Yeah. What other questions do we have in there?
That was about it. Yeah.
I have one more. So I think you talked about this a little bit earlier, but I've always wondered, if I owned a property and I was thinking about doing a 1031 exchange, is there anything to prevent me from looking well ahead of time for a replacement property? I mean, do I have to be within that time period, or could I say, okay, well, I have a property today. I'm going to start driving around looking for a property, and then I'm going to go into the 1031 knowing, oh, I've got my eye on this place.
Yeah, of
That way
course.
I don't have to worry about the time.
Yeah, to answer your question is yes. I mean, I recommend that people do that, especially with what's going on in the real estate market right now. And it's pretty, I mean, property are getting just bid up and out of control, right? And you have multiple offers and it's getting pretty nutty. The challenge is just the, triangulation of all that timing. And that's the challenge, and getting your property sold in the close, and then getting that other property before it sells. It's just a challenge when it comes to that. In a DST, it's a lot easier to do that because we're already working with you, and when I know that property is being listed, we're already identifying the available DSTs, and we're talking to you about it so that as soon as you close, we can get the new investment going.
Maybe Michael wants to address
Yeah.
this, but what that's called is a reverse exchange.
It could possibly be a reverse exchange. So you have the option of shopping, doing everything you need to do to secure the property before you even list the one that you're going to sell. The caveat and the requirement of the IRS is that you sell before you buy.
Yes.
That would be your traditional delayed exchange. There are other types of exchanges, and one of them is a reverse exchange, which a lot of people are doing in part because of the market and the lack of inventory.
Thank you
where
for
they
bringing that up.
Purchase before they sell. So they're actually able to utilize the 1031 exchange code to be able to still defer the taxes, but they're buying before they're selling. Biggest caveat that they have to be able to bring in all of the cash.
Yeah, that's the thing.
transaction. So,
And I should have brought this up. If people can't hear, because I'm concerned with Michael, you're sitting over there, right? So what Michelle is bringing up is a reverse exchange where you buy first and then you sell your property. And that is possible to do. As Michael is bringing up, right, the challenge that you have to have the capital to be able to buy that property first, right? And then again, you get into the challenge of all this timing. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
I think that's what the question I got was asking. That makes more sense.
Yes. Yeah, you can certainly do that.
I would say that the one thing that kind of come into play for me recently, your question with the cash out on another property, is where requirement of the IRS is that they also have to carry the same amount of debt. So if they have a loan on the property they're selling, they need to get a loan on the new property. Depending on what they're trying to do, getting that loan might be more complicated or the rate might not be as good. So looking into pulling the money from other properties might be a solution for them. So the couple I spoke with just this morning is looking at that. They are actually looking at doing a home equity line to offset the debt that they have from the property they're selling, so that they actually are going to buy the new property completely in cash.
Oh.
And they won't have any loan on that property, and essentially they're basically moving the debt to a different one.
But they have multiple properties.
They have multiple properties, and the wife doesn't like it because they're taking it from a property that's held for investment and strictly business, and now they're putting a loan on their personal property. So there's a caveat to go with that.
I hope everyone heard that, because I can't. Because that was very.
Wife's got a point.
The wife does have a point, right? You're moving that as a financial planner.
But that's where it's good to have these conversations as soon as possible with all the parties involved, right? You have the realtor involved, you have the lender involved, you have an advisor involved, and then your intermediary to help you out too. So yeah, that way they all help you to see the big picture and figure out the way to.
So that's the key what you just said. I really want to make sure everyone hears that, is as you have these different situations, pull a team together. And at the same time, what I'm finding is that clients are talking to one person, then another, then another. Get us together in the same room so we can do what we just did here, right? We have 5 people here of all different specialties, you know, answering these questions.
Okay, nice work, Bruce. Nice work. Nice, well talking. Michelle, great support. All right, you ready? You don't need the background stuff. I just wanted to get you to.
So what would you like me to?
Oh, I just wanted to go through the slides. I think it was muted when he was speaking, so that was my concern, is we missed a lot of the awesome stuff, and then just the, you know, we got a talking head and not a bit of info. Which you are quintessential. I literally had one person on that. Hear what you had to say.
All right, cool. So I am Mike Cazada. I am with Old Republic Exchange. We are a qualified intermediary that is focused on the 1031 portion of the transaction. We are here to facilitate the 1031 portion. And what we're going to do is we are going to be assigned into contract. We are going to assist with the sale of the relinquished property. We're going to be responsible for holding onto the funds during the exchange period. And then when you locate your replacement property, we will then work with you to acquire the new property, being again assigned into contract, executing the documents, and forwarding the money directly to escrow. So as I just mentioned, we work with the escrow company. We are Old Republic Exchange. We are a sister company to Old Republic Title, who is actually going to be the neutral third party in the transaction. So they're the ones who actually handle all the documentation, all the money, and do most of the coordinating with all the parties involved. We are focused, like I said, on the 1031 part of the transaction. So we are going to only be focused on looking at that part of it and making sure that it's being done correctly and following all of the guidelines and the rules that the IRS has. Like Bruce said, there's some very strict requirements from the IRS. First one is that you have to use a qualified intermediary. So that's where we come into play. And then one of the biggest rules is that you're not allowed to ever touch the funds. You're not allowed to ever hold any of the proceeds. They have to go directly from escrow to the qualified intermediary, directly to the escrow company for the replacement property. So qualified intermediaries are not regulated. They are not monitored. And anybody who is not a disallowed party, which is a very, very short list, actually qualifies to be a qualified intermediary. When I think of handling property and I think of the amounts of money that are being handled and I'm trusting somebody with, one of the most important things I think that we have to remember is that we have to work with somebody who is financially secure. We have to know that our money is in a safe place, that we're going to have access to it when we need it, and that we're working with a company who has our best interests at heart. And at Old Republic Exchange, we definitely look to be that partner for you. So, like I said, we're going to work with the title company to assist with the relinquishment and the acquisition of the investment properties that you're selling in order to follow the 1031 requirements. We're going to prepare all of the exchange documents. We will send them directly to escrow. They will build them into the closing package. We're more than happy, like we just got done talking about, to work with each other, to work with your advisors, your tax advisor, your CPA, your realtor, your lender, to make sure that we're working together to achieve your goal. We actually are going to be assigned into contract. So we're going to execute the closing papers as the seller, and the buyer. You will simply be executing them as read and approved. So you're still acknowledging as to what's going on, but because we got assigned into contract, we execute them on the seller and the buyer's behalf. We are going to hold on to all of the funds during the exchange period. And then once you do locate that replacement property, we're going to make sure to work very closely with escrow, with your realtor, with your lender, and make sure that everything's done in a timely fashion and done correctly to meet all the requirements of the 1031 exchange. Thank you.
Sure. Screen.
Clean it up for you here. Stop share.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to Austin Lawrence, Pacific Wholesale Mortgage, to Bruce Frankel and Michelle Husse with Eckhoff and Company and Eckhoff Wealth Management, and with Michael Cazada, Old Republic Exchange. And if you haven't had a chance to visit Bodega Bay, please come out, take a drive around, give me a call, 694-8925, area code 707, and let me know if you're interested in looking at any properties. And thank you for being here tonight. And